The next speaker is the Honorable Alli. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my intention tonight was to address the specific issues of this motion and to deal in a broad way with some issues that relate to the improvement of the system and the development of an overarching plan that will address the issues that we face in relation to energy and electricity in this country. And we must be aware in this House that the present conditions are not desirable. We're not competitive, we're not sustainable. And if we are not competitive and we're not sustainable, then it says to us we need to improve. We need to find the solutions. But before I go there, I must address some of the issues raised by the previous speaker. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member referred to repairs and maintenance costs, and she gave the figures under the PP civic government. And she concluded, the honorable member concluded, that when the APNU AFC came to government, they inherited a system that required tremendous investment in repairs and maintenance. If we go back to 1992, we will tell you that we inherited a system, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, if we go back to 1992, I can tell you that we also inherited a broken system. But we had to fix the system. We have to ensure that we continue to improve and build the system. We have to build the system. The honorable member then said that the operational costs as it relates to maintenance and repairs was high. But the honorable member did not say in the same breath that over the last 6 years, when the APNU AFC came to government, they also inherited the lowest price of fuel per barrel.
6 years.
Oh, she used a 6 years time frame. I'm saying in the 2 years that the APNU AFC came to government, they benefited from tremendous cost savings as a result of cost of oil per barrel. Where did that saving go? What was that savings utilized for? After acquiring such large amount of savings, one would assume that you would have at least invested those savings into the system to bring greater efficiency and delivery to the people of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member said that we bring this motion because we have a political agenda. Mr. Speaker, well, if the honorable member wants us to believe that representing the interests of the people, standing up for the rights of the people, standing against the 14% VAT on electricity, standing against the inconsistency and the inefficiency in the deliverance of energy to the people as political, then we are proud to stand on the side of the people with this motion. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member said that the motion is filled with speculation and misinformation. This honorable member is part of a government that a year ago had a public advertisement saying, we have brought an end to blackouts. We have brought an end to flooding. That is what this government said in their environment. That is what I consider misinformation, false information, not what this motion is bringing to us. Mr. Speaker, how can we say
You said you had put a stop to it.
that the situation is stable? The situation as it relates to energy is not stable. And if we want to deal with the problem, we first of all would have to acknowledge that there is a problem. We can't fix the situation if we don't acknowledge there is a problem on our hands. And I'll go into that in a few moments. But let me say this. The honorable member spoke about procurement. And the honorable member mentioned that under the PP Civic, we had more resources, more services procured because we spent more money. However, Mr. Speaker, what the honorable member did not say was in that period, we were implementing 2 large loan projects at GPL that this government inherited, including the improvement of the transmission main and the interconnection project. And then the honorable member went on to say that in 2015 and 2016, they only spent $781 million and $403 million on procurement. The honorable member did not go on to say why. There was tremendous underperformance. And one of the major reasons was that the largest contract that was supposed to be awarded through the procurement process is now in a bid protest with the IDB. So that project could not have been implemented. It could not have been implemented because there is a bid protest. Now, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable, I'm not saying no, I'm just expressing why.
Stating a fact.
Mr. Speaker,
It's a fact.
I would like the Honorable member
The next 6
to address us on a few issues. And let me ask the Honorable member to say to us on the wind farm, when was it advertised? When was it advertised? Who are the providers of this service? What is the track record of the service provider? Where is the MOU? What consultations were done in relation to this project? I would like the honorable member to give us this information. And finally, let me say and set the record straight. The Public Procurement Commission was appointed by the Public Accounts Committee of the Parliament of Guyana. Not the APNUASC government.
And with a 2/3 majority. With 2/3 majority.
And this house should be proud because it is this house that unanimously agreed on the members of the Public Procurement Commission. This house. Mr. Speaker,
You voted against?
let us look at the Global Competitiveness Report 2015-2016.
VAC, you never
In that report, Mr. Speaker,
you never gave the 2/3.
it identifies electricity as the primary challenge for Guyana. When the World Bank did its survey among businesses and individuals, the number one issue that was raised was that of electricity. And when it was broken down into the various components, it was the cost of electricity, the time frame that it took to get a connection for the service, and 3 was the efficiency of the service. Mr. Speaker, today, and I challenge any one of the members to check this out. Today, if a household in a new housing scheme requires a connection and a new meter, you know how long it would take them to get that new meter? We have hundreds of persons waiting between 6 months to a year and a half for a connection from GPL right now. We have persons in the Edghill housing scheme waiting over 1 year for a meter from GPL right now. And I would challenge the Honorable Minister to doubt that. Mr. Speaker,
We never refer to you or us. We just said it's a fact.
as I said, Mr. Speaker,
Fine. No problem.
in that report, electricity was ranked as the highest or most serious obstacle to business in Guyana. And the Honorable Minister of Business must recognize this. It takes approximately 104 days to obtain an electric connection, which is significantly above the average in the Caribbean, in the rest of the region, which is 62 days. Mr. Speaker,
You wake up. or-
there's an average.
Why you never say?
When you present the facts to the comrades, they get all Basidi. You know the Basidi movie? You should look at that. Mr. Speaker, in Guyana,
You should let you speak.
in Guyana,
No, you're very knowledgeable.
we experience an average of eight power outages per month, with an average duration of 3 hours.
I am not.
This is what the report said.
I'm not.
In Guyana, we experience 8 power outages per month with an average duration of 3 hours. The highest in the Caribbean. Exceeded 2016. This is 2016. 2016. The estimated loss, and Mr. Speaker, it is the highest in the Caribbean, and they exceed the levels incurred by the counterparts in the Caribbean. Mr. Speaker, I can help the honorable members, because how can the honorable members claim to have a plan when they don't have the input data to help them develop that plan? This is the input data derived from the international body, and you don't have that data to develop your plan. How is it that you come up with a plan? Mr. Speaker, let me say that the solution to our problem does not lie in a one-way street. We have many approaches that we can take. We have, and I'm not here to say, and that is why we are saying, let us have the development plan. Let us examine where you want to go. Let us examine what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, what are the threats. What is for sure is that if we want to achieve sustainable energy production, if we want to be a country with 100% renewable energy, we cannot continue in this way. We cannot continue in the present way we are. And it is justifiably so, because according to the projections, by 2020, price per barrel of oil would go to $73.6 US. By 2030, it will go to $101.8 US per barrel. And by 2035, it will go to $119.5 US per barrel. And then if you look at our consumption, and when we examine the issue of GPL, we also have to look at the growth in terms of the consumption and the growth in the output of GPL. And if we look at the 1970s, we had 74 gigawatts per hour. In mid-1975 to 1980, we had just below 150 gigawatts per hour. In the 1980 to 1992, we had just below 200 gigawatts per hour. Between 1992 to 2016, we had a growth from 350 gigawatts per hour to almost 780 gigawatts per hour. This is the type of growth that we would have had in the system. And it's because of the increasing number of households, the increasing access to electricity. We have more persons on the grid now than we had in the 70s and 80s and 90s. That is a fact, and we have to deal with this. Now, the other issue is, where do we want to go? Where is this discussion going, Mr. Speaker? Is it that we are looking at the production of energy to meet only our national requirement? All the experts would have pointed to this fact, that we have enough capacity in terms of renewable energy to be a net exporter of energy. So this strategy, potential or whatever, we have the ability to be a net exporter of energy. Whilst there's a lot of emphasis in the oil and gas industry, this is another very important area that can be of tremendous benefit to our country, that can create many opportunities in the future. How do we achieve this? We cannot achieve this by being pessimists. We cannot achieve this by every time a government change, you come in, you kick out a study, you kick in a study, you put down a study, you replace a study. There must be a sustainable framework that we will follow as policy makers in achieving the objectives that we set if it is a net export of energy. And that strategy must involve all of us so that we can have a definitive energy strategy looking into the future. So whether government changes, minister change, there must be a predictable framework that one investor can look at and say, okay, the country is going to follow this pathway. Mr. Speaker, and it's not fair to say that the Amylus Falls Hydro Project was not shared with members of the government, because I was part of the meeting when all the documents was handed over to Comrade Carl Greenwich. He is saying eventually, but all I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, is that the documents were shared, and we must delude ourselves of that illusion that is non-factual. Mr. Speaker, the Amylus Falls Hydro Project would have saved us $3.5 billion over 20 years. And it would have saved us $100 million in fuel import bill. Mr. Speaker, whether we say it's too late, it's too early, or whatever, what we are saying is that the Amylus Falls Hydro Project is an option that is viable and an option that we should not take off the table if we are to look at a sustainable framework into the future. That's all we're saying, Mr. Speaker. And if you look at the report,
which report?
the Narcosalt report, Mr. Speaker, in the summary page, it says the only realistic path for Guyana towards an emission-free electricity sector is by developing its hydropower potential. The fastest way forward is to maintain AFHP as the first major step for sustaining its current oil-fired generation. Mr. Speaker, this is page 3 of 49. And I want to take the honorable member to page 12. You check it. Mr. Speaker, on page 12, it says this: after competitive bidding after competitive bidding between 5 pre-qualified candidates, AFHI in 2008 selected China Rail Forest Group. This is clear. Mr. Speaker, this is clear. This is clear. Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, we cannot hear what the member is saying. There has to be interest in this or no interest in it. Honorable members should at least allow the member to make his statement. Please
Mr.
proceed.
Speaker, the report points to a competitive bidding process. That's all I'm saying. Mr. Speaker, and let us look at the effect of the imposition of the VAT on electricity. Mr. Speaker, I spoke, and I want the Honorable Minister of Business to listen to this, because I know the very persons would have talked to him also. We have the issue in the poultry sector. That is one of the issues in relation to the VAT on electricity and water. The second group of business is that of the local juice providers. There is one company.
I remember this is to do with the
Electricity and
electricity,
GPL.
juice and poultry
Yes,
and so
yes,
on.
yes.
I remember I would like relevance and let us stay focused.
Mr.
We are
Speaker,
approaching 10 o'clock.
Mr. Speaker, one thing in my life, I've always been relevant. Mr. Speaker, the juice, there's a company here that produces local juice. The monthly electricity bill is $1 million, between $1 million to $1.2 million. Yes, go and check, Honorable Minister of Finance. With the imposition of VAT, that company now would have to spend $150,000 additionally every month on electricity. The smallest poultry processing plant will be spending an additional $450,000 per month on electricity. $450,000 per month on electricity. Mr. Speaker, all I'm saying is that we can decide whether this is sustainable. The Honorable Minister of Business can decide whether this would encourage private manufacturers, whether this would encourage the services industry. But my humble suggestion is that it will not. My humble suggestion is that we must sit on the table and find a way to remove this burden from our local manufacturers. That's all I'm saying. Mr. Speaker, the future lies in the hands of everyone in this House. Let us think big. Let us act big. And let us work together in developing a sustainable solution. Not only for Guyana, but for us to become a net producer and exporter of energy resources. I thank you.
I thank the honourable member for his statement.